And let's start with one of the best young political commentators around, Lettice Bromovsky, who I always like to talk about these things, and she is here live in the studio with me. The government is spending a fortune on the energy price protection scheme and is about to spend another £25 million on an advertising campaign. Do you think they've got a grip on this?
No, I don't think they have a grip on this at all, to be quite honest with you. And I think one of the main reasons that they don't have a grip is this crisis is not just affecting the most vulnerable or the poorest in society, as in previous, crises we've potentially seen this, but this is affecting every single person in society. Everyone is struggling with their energy bills right now, and no one can quite comprehend it. On the front page of The Independent today, they ran with the story about how by next April, 1 million people are going to be in fuel poverty. And this is all also because of the government plans and them backtracking again and governments changing over again and again. So in the budget just a few weeks ago, Jeremy Hunt said that they would be dropping that energy price guarantee from what it is right now, £2,100 per household, and it will be going up to £3,000 per household. This is a huge increase for a lot of people who are already struggling with these prices.
Sure.
Yes.
And for some, the struggle becomes unbearable, which is why the gentleman sitting next to you is now going to join our conversation. It's Matt Drumfield, who is the CEO of the London Debt-Free Advice Service, set up by the Mayor. I mean, the fact of the matter is she's absolutely spot on. It's been bad. It is likely to get worse. We heard that from Ofgem just the other day. And you are there, set up by the Mayor, not to try and help people save money, but to try and help people just keep going. What a state of affairs.
It's a mess, Alastair, absolutely. Our charity's been running for the last 16 years, and this is as bad as we've ever seen it. Inquiries into our service up 300% compared to this time last year, and we're speaking about energy right now. For many of our customers, they're in local authority housing or housing associations, which means they're on prepayment meters. So people are already choosing to self-disconnect from their electric and gas. They cannot keep their families warm this Christmas. And we speak about, we've heard around the vouchers that people are getting. Many of our customers are not receiving those vouchers yet, and they're having to constantly chase to get them. So we're really, really concerned about what this winter looks like for so many people.
Sure. But whichever side of the political spectrum you come from, and I'm guessing you might be slightly different on that spectrum, the fact of the matter is, as a country, we cannot afford, as taxpayers, to sort it all out. As everybody who's got an ounce of intelligence has said, this is essentially about Ukraine, it's about global gas, energy and oil prices and what have you, short of completely changing the political system, which some people have been saying. We are stuck in that corner. And when we were preparing this programme, one thing struck me, and this is to both of you, that there are an awful lot of folk, good folk like you out there and a couple of my other guests who are coming along in just a moment, full of great ideas, how to save a bob or two here, how to get through it. There's virtually no real advice out there about how to build growth in the economy, how to support people creating new businesses who generate new wealth and from that new taxes and what have you. I mean, my nightmare is dependency culture and slump. Do you sense that?
Well, you make a good point, but the question is, if the government can't afford to keep people warm this winter, where they're going to end up, where families are going to end up in this hospital with pneumonia. And then the bill for the NHS will go through the roof. And the NHS is already on its knees, right? We need to keep families warm. We need to put the support in place. And yes, there are global events affecting people's energy prices. But we can't let people die this winter.
No, I'm genuinely
bills on, right?
Nobody here is saying that for a moment. But I noticed when I mentioned a bit about growth, job creation, wealth creation, your head was nodding in agreement. I mean, there literally, post the budget, is a zero agenda on that front.
I agree with that. I think the budget that Jeremy Hunt brought out was dramatically disappointing in generating growth. We seem to be stuck, as Rachel Reeves said just the other day, in this doom loop. Like, we are getting borrowing, taxing, spending again and again and again on top of each other. From the budget, one thing which I thought was so disappointing, as you were saying earlier, we've got nurses on strike at the moment. They're asking for a 19% pay rise. That's a lot. In total, it would cost the government about $10 billion. The government put forward to increase benefits in line with inflation. That's costing them £11 billion. That's basically a dead-end road. Those benefits are going nowhere. There is no growth generated from giving people those increase in benefits.
Yeah, I mean, one of the extraordinary things, and we've heard it time and time again on GB News, TV and radio, is the number of nurses that are voting with their wallets and their feet. They're going to work in Tesco or in some other supermarket. Before you got into debt advisory work, you used to work with young people on building up their skill set, getting out there, finding a job, earning money, and at the end of the day, paying tax. Don't we need 100 times more of that right now?
We do. We need to support people into high-paid jobs. It's a very good question, and one that we'd love to have a government minister on this sofa with us to discuss properly. I spoke about the 300% increase we're seeing coming through to our service. Traditionally, over the last 16 years, it's lots of people that were looking for work, people that I helped when I was working for the youth charity. Yes. It's not anymore. It's nurses, it's teachers, it's doctors. It's the people we clapped during the COVID pandemic. And they're now struggling. They're working endless hours to support us and our families when we're sick, and yet we, as a society, are not supporting them in return.
One thing that I will say, which is brutal, and obviously I wasn't going to agree with you, and nobody is suggesting that folk are going to die and we should do nothing about it. I'd be the last person to say that. But one thing that I will say, which is quite brutal, is that there is much more energy in building up a dependency culture than there is in a stand on your own 2 feet and pay your way. When you talked about folk who cannot pay their bills and end up in your office talking to your brilliant team, and they are a brilliant team, and they are great, great people, it's because they don't earn enough, they don't have the right job, or they haven't been able to set up a business that generates even more money. If you stick all of that together and those extra payments winging their way, universal credit top-ups, pensioners and the rest of it, it is fanning the flames of a dependency culture rather than a stand-on-your-own-2 feet culture. I know that's harsh, but I wanted to say it. Your view?
And I think many people would agree with you watching at home. I think if you come into our advice centres and shadow some of our advisors, you'll see so many people working 2, 3 jobs whilst having childcare responsibilities, whilst looking after a member of their family. They're doing everything they can to pay their bills, to put food on the table. But with the rate of inflation at the moment, with everything else going on, that just isn't enough. Right? There's only so many hours in the day. If you're doing 3 jobs, what else can you do? And yes, when I was working in the youth employment charity for people starting their career, that was great to get them a foot up. But when people are already doing 3 jobs, they haven't got time to start their own business. Not everyone can run their own business. We need nurses, we need teachers, we need people in our supermarkets. They're good jobs, as I said. We clapped them during the COVID pandemic. We can't have a society without them. They're vital.
Lettice.
Yeah, definitely on the nurses front, I completely agree, and I do think the nurses should get a pay rise. What they're asking for now, and even Rishi Sunak came out yesterday saying, you know, at this time, that is a rather impossible ask to give you 19% of a pay rise. But they're vital. They're saving lives. And just the 2 days of strikes that they'll be going on in December, and now we're going to have about 30,000 operations postponed because of this. We've got waiting times of 1.7 million. And I think a lot of the pay increase that is there is within NHS funding on the whole. Just before Tony Blair came in, the funding for the NHS was about £33 billion. It's now at 180 around about £1 billion. That is an almost 6-fold increase in funding for the NHS. The money for the pay rises must be found in there. There needs to be reform. Things need to be moved around. Where is all of this money going otherwise? We've got longest wait times, no ambulances, you can't get anyone on the phone, weeks to see a doctor for, the smallest ailments. There must be reform there.
Have you both trimmed your sails personally? I don't know what you earn, and it's none of my business, but to live within that. But we have, and I'm lucky. I've been gainfully employed all my life, and quite often in jobs that pay quite well. I'm the first to admit that quite publicly. But even now, we are trimming our sails here and there. Have you had to do that personally?
The same, yes. I mean, I have a good job. I'm paid well for that job that I do. My service charge for the apartment I live in London has gone up by 33% this month. That's about £190 I've been asked for more. So my gym membership.
What's been the most efficient and effective thing that you've done in terms of your personal budget?
So I've cancelled my gym membership. I can't afford to do that and that increase, right? I'm going to have to go, not going to have to. I'm going to go for runs on the street. I can't go to gym classes anymore. got to make cutbacks. Lots of people have got to do that. Unfortunately, for many of our customers, they've already cut back on everything they possibly can.
Because that would be top of the list when they sat down opposite you and said, I'm in debt, so, OK, tell me your standing orders, tell me your subscriptions. What have you done that's been the most radical thing?
I haven't turned my heating on yet. So our house has agreed that it's just not cost effective, and I'd rather sit there at my desk, go into the office, or sit there at my desk with 2 jumpers, a dressing gown and a hat on, rather than turn it on. But not just for me, I've had some of my friends, they're leaving their homes to go back home to live with their parents because it is just not sustainable, the amount of money they spend on their rent, the amount of money they spend on their bills. We're not saving anything as a younger generation, so it's easier to live at home than it is to rent somewhere.
Tell me about it.
Yeah.
The final point, and it segues nicely from that, actually, and you were both very candid about the dangers of a dependency culture, and thank you particularly for being as frank as you were. The other thing I sense, partly as an observer, but also partly as a dad, is a generational divide. I said, you know, top-up payments winging their way, whether it's the winter fuel allowance for pensioners or the pension being index-linked as per the triple lock agreement that was in the Conservative Party's manifesto, etc., etc., etc. But people of her age and my children's age feel people of my age are getting it all, and there's zilch for them. So a dependency culture and an anger from younger folk towards older people. Do you sense that when you talk to people?
I'll give you an example of a customer that came in just this week, right? A young working family. One is a teacher, one is a nurse in the NHS. They had £11,000 worth of debt to their local authority and council tax arrears because they're prioritising feeding their family and everything else first. The council was demanding £3,500 a month in their payments to repay that. That's 3 times their monthly income between them, right? And they're doing really valuable jobs. But there is hope, because I don't want to put us out there, right? Our advisors were there, they stepped in, they managed to write off £1,500 of that debt, and rather than the extortionate £3,500 monthly payments, they negotiated, and with our advisors' support, they brought that down to £458. So then that customer now has in their family £300 a month more. And just want to get in there quick, our advisors work 7 days a week. Yeah. Yes, we've got advisors in London, but we're open nationally. If there's people watching at home and they're worried about it, they should call us now on 0800 808 5700. We're 7 days a week, and we're open 8 a.m. till 8 p.m.
Good man. We'll put that up on the website as well. Matt Drumfield, always... no, it's a pleasure to meet you. We haven't spoken before. Lettice Bromovsky, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. Really honest conversation, and thank you for that. And one thing that one of our viewers has already tweeted in, I now share with you, is when you do turn on the central heating, make sure that the radiators in rooms that you don't use, or don't use quite so much, are turned down. And if you don't use the word room at all, turn it right off.
Yeah, good advice.
Good to see both of you. Thank you very, very much indeed. Continuing